meeting. Meeting, as you say, is really good. First of all, Ian is going to speak and give you some background. And then Peter Fortune is also then going to say a few words after that. They're both on Zoom. Andrew Gray is then going to speak on behalf of Radyr Morganstown Local Development Plan Group.
I think, David, if you could just get a little bit closer to the microphone, I'm not sure it's coming through that way.
Stuart Burgess from the North West Cardiff Group is then going to speak, and then Rod McCurley. And after that, we will throw the meeting over to everyone. Okay, so if we can start, I'll ask Ian to start the meeting.
Good evening, everybody. That's better. You've hopefully got my face on the screen now, as well as some slides that I'm going to talk my way through as I introduce this this topic, this session on the local development plan. David has already stolen a little bit of my thunder, as I was going to start by talking about what the local development plan is and some of the groups that are currently working on this plan. The list of speakers David has already read out represent myself here on behalf of the Radyr Morganstown Association, Peter Fortune on behalf of the Radyr Morganstown Local Development Group. I believe we have someone on behalf of the Community Council and potentially also the North West Cardiff Group, who've been working across the Northwest area, as their logo suggests, to look at the local development plan. And already I'm using this word over and over again without explaining it. So I suppose I really need to start by answering that question. What is the local development plan? And it is a plan required to be created by Cardiff Council to put together the strategy and the policy behind what sort of development, what sort of urban development is felt to be required to meet the needs of the city for a period of time. And the new local development plan, which is what guides the planning applications that can be agreed, has a framework looking like this. So the current plan runs out this year in 2022. It's been extended to 2025, ready for a new plan up to 2036. It's a 10-year plan that's currently being prepared. The local development plan, as I say, is what governs what should get planning consent and what sort of rules get put around that planning consent for any type of action that requires planning permission. The one that we most frequently talk about is the building of residential properties, but it does cover a whole range of things. This snapshot is an extract from the LDP delivery agreement that was put out by Cardiff Council in March 2021, setting out the stages that need to be gone through to bring out this key document. It's a little bit fuzzy, but this version helps to give a better place of where we are in that timeline. So the delivery agreement itself was agreed in March 2021. In May 2021, there was a pre-launch event and a consultation on the draft vision and objectives. Then November to February, there was a consultation on strategic objectives that has just completed. But that doesn't mean we're anywhere near the end. That's only the second of a number of phases. Because going on from here now, they're candidate sites, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, but sites that are looking to be developed, they are candidates for development, a step well before their actual planning permission, but that agreement that they're a good place to do the things that we're looking to do. Those candidate sites have been submitted, and I believe Peter will talk a little bit more about those later on, as they are now being considered and evaluated. There will then be a consultation in October 2022 on the preferred strategy. October 2023 sees a consultation on a deposit plan, the version of the plan that is due to be deposited by the council and put forward as the plan, which is then submitted for examination, examined by the higher authorities, including submission to the Welsh Government, for approval as a suitable development plan under the rules and regs in Wales. An inspector's report and finally adoption by the council is expected in October 2024 before the new plan comes into force in 2025. So we still have a while left under the old plan. We still have a number of hoops and stages to jump through with the new plan before it completely comes in. But why do we have a plan? We have a plan because it is about making sure that the city is fit for purpose. The local development plan is city-wide. It will cover Radyr and Morganstown as a part of the city. There will be parts of it that are specifically about us. There will be parts about the strategy for the city as a whole. It covers, yes, the building of things, but it also covers issues like active travel and integrated travel across the city, because we're all aware that just building places for people to live and places for people to work doesn't work if we're not also considering how those people are going to get between those locations. It's no good, for example, having a brand new shiny arena in Cardiff Bay if nobody can get to and from a Mannix gig when it happens down there. So the LDP it affects us locally, but it also affects us as constituents of the city, as users of facilities across the city, as people who need to travel across the city to access various services. And that's the third thing that I've forgotten to mention, looking at my notes. It's the services that the city needs. The schools, the hospitals, the doctors' surgeries, all of that council and civic provided stuff in the widest sense, all the stuff that comes out of our taxes and gets paid for, that also needs to be big enough for the number of people who are expected in the city, whether that's residents, workers, tourists, whoever they are who are using facilities in the city, from as simple things as having enough bin men to go around, having enough buses, having enough doctors, having enough capacity at our hospitals. All of that is within the remit of what the LDP talks about. So my first picture of Radyr and Morganstown, as if we didn't know where we were talking about. Orange line denotes the official constituency boundary of Radyr and Morganstown ward. This map, obviously a little outdated now because it was a snap that was taken before Plasdŵr really got going with its building works, but gives you a sense of where we're talking about. And we might come back to using these for illustrations later. I started to mention the candidate site register. So with the strategy consultation having happened, there is now this candidate site register, which is that register of places that think that they might be able to provide some solutions to the things that the LDP is trying to achieve. These little snippets are the 5 that are nearest to us, 3 that technically fall outside my orange boundary, as they're in the Penturk side of the line, but we may particularly be interested in the expansion of Taftswell Quarry that is proposed. And I really should put that caveat in at this point, that these are only proposed sites, they are candidate sites. This is not that they have been agreed, it's that various interested parties have signalled that they have a site that may well be useful in achieving the aims of the new local development plan. Now, there are some advantages for people having their candidate site recognised by the LDP, in that if you're recognised as achieving things in the LDP, theoretically, planning permission is simpler for you because you have already said that what you are doing is something that fulfills the aims of Cardiff's local development plan. So the 2 that really are strictly within Radyr and Morganstown are Goitrefawr at Plasdŵr and Radyr Station Car Park. I won't steal all of Peter's thunder. I will just show you where they exist on a map for now, and I will let Peter tell you a little bit more about those later on, and I shall just check my notes for where I'm supposed to talk about next. It's worth mentioning active travel. So this is the plan of where our current active travel routes are. Yes, the big orange splodge in that is Plasdŵr, as the active travel routes in that are not currently included in Cardiff Council's plan of existing active travel routes, although there are theoretically commitments to Plasdŵr having some joining up routes. which is interesting when you see that none of the pink actually stretches as far as Plasdŵr at the moment. So we await to see the details of how active travel will actually join up. And one of the key things perhaps for us to look at as a community when future rounds of consultation on the LDP come through is how those active travel routes actually do connect us with the various parts of the city that we may wish to do things in. We're also very aware around here of the South Wales Metro and the places it does or doesn't connect us to. Another part of the integrated transport plan that exists, that is mentioned in the LDP, it's a part of the LDP. How are these people who are being provided for in the city going to be connected? One of those ways apparently is the South Wales Metro, although we already, many of us know the difficulty of that gap that currently exists on that map between Radyr and Taftswell, with no other access points, and no access point between Radyr and Radyr, Danescourt and Fairwater. So no access point actually within Plasdŵr to the metro system as it is currently laid out in that phase 1 map from Transport for Wales. We're also within a wider context. So to finish, I'm going to talk about that wider context because Cardiff is part of a capital region. Now, whilst the local development plan is strictly required to be drafted by each separate local authority for their area, we really should be remembering that Cardiff's funding is partially from Cardiff Capital Region. There's 1.3 billion of investment over the 20 years between 2016 and 2036. Now, 7.5 million of that is ring fenced for metro-related developments, not strictly just the metro itself, but metro-related developments, with 5 million available for wider investment projects across that region of, I believe it's 10 local authorities across South Wales that have come together to do things in a more joined up way. And so another question that we need to make sure that we're asking when we're looking at the LDP is how are the questions that are being answered within the LDP being looked at in the context of Cardiff, the capital region? And basically, do we need to do it all ourselves? Or is there some value in letting some of the answers to what some of the statistics suggest we might need actually be provided by these things that are at the end of a metro link, these things that are making us a very connected South Wales within the Cardiff capital region, rather than trying to find the answer to everything within the city of Cardiff itself. So that capital region, a unique programme looking to collaboratively work across those boundaries. And as Radyr and Morganstown, we're very aware of the boundary that we very closely sit on. Supposed to be breaking some of those boundaries and allowing us to work with our neighbouring authorities to do things together better where we can. So a little snap of some of the things that are apparently already happening across there, although if you do go on the Cardiff Capital Region website, you'll see how many of these are supposedly happening, but a little bit difficult to prove at the moment. So I will stop waffling there and hand the floor back to David.
Thank you very much, Ian. We'll now pass over to Peter Fortune, who's on Zoom.
Can you hear me, everybody? Is okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think, I mean, we set up a Radyr and Morganstown local development group in order to contest some of the proposals in the local development plan, or the replacement local development plan. And it might be a good idea, before I carry on, to ask Angela Gray, to tell us a little bit more about the Radyr and Morganstown local development group. I think Angela's in the hall, David, isn't she?
Yes, she's in the hall. She's just coming out to speak.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the group before Peter gives you the details of our response to the latest consultation, just to put it a bit more in context. The Radyr and Morganstown local development group was set up a couple of months ago. initiated by Helen Lloyd Jones. I'm the acting chair for the time being. We have a secretary, Louis, the students, who is Billy. David Cargill is our treasurer. Not that we have any funding at the moment, so that isn't for us, but hopefully something we will work on in the future. We have about 15 members to start with, and we've got a few more by now, and we are all interested in contributing to the replacement Cardiff local development plan, as Ian has explained. At the moment, we're particularly concerned about the potential loss of the fields which abound at our lane, go right across to Revised and down to Lanchester Road. This is a large area of countryside, open countryside that many of you will be familiar with through the footpaths through there. I'm sure many of you walk your children or your dogs or just go for a walk yourselves. And we'd like to see what we can do to save this area from future development, at least in the short term. So our group is a mixture of backgrounds. Some of the people involved are battle scarred from previous campaigns against development in Radyr Morganstown, most recently, of course, Plasdŵr. Some of us are new to all these processes, and we certainly have a lot to learn. So far, we've had 3 meetings, all on Zoom, and next one is next Monday. Our priority really, when we formed, and as I say, we've only been formed a couple of months, our priority was to put a response in to the consultation on the strategy options for the replacement local development plan, as Ian has told you about. The consultation period closed on February 8th, so we had very little time, but we did get a submission together, and also many of us made individual responses as well. The council had put forward 3 options for consultation, and they all included an increase in the forecast for new housing required, but to varying degrees. And the group's response basically challenged the population growth forecast, which resulted in those figures. And we can see no justification for any increase in the number of houses planned for over and above the current LDP, particularly as the annual rates of completion are much lower than anticipated. But Peter will now enlarge on all of this for you and give you some relevant facts and figures and the details of our response. And then after Peter's finished, the idea is that I will come back to you to explain what our group might be focusing on in the months to come. So now we can go to Peter. Sorry, we've been a bit revolutionary in changing the agenda at short notice. Over to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Basically then, Ian has outlined the situation as far as the replacement local development plan is concerned, and what are the critical matters as far as we're concerned in Radyr and Morganstown. Basically, it's the site that Ian has identified as Goitrafawr, basically the land north of Llantrisant Road and to the west of Pantarwell Lane. It's the site that is indicated on Ian's map. The replacement local development plan has now proposing 3 strategic options, all of which involve even more houses and an increase in population. I should say at this stage that everything that's gone on in Cardiff in the last 5 years in terms of house building is within the framework of Future Wales, which is a national development plan for the country. And South East Wales, the Cardiff capital region that Ian has described, is a national strategic growth area. And by 2040, Future Wales demands, requires, whatever you want to call it, that 66,000 houses, 66,000 more houses are built in those 10 local authorities. So what we have been trying to do as a local development group is to contest the 3 options that the replacement local development plan is now considering, and to say that there is no requirement at the moment for any further growth in Cardiff over and above the land that is already allocated, not just in Plasdŵr, but in south of Radyr, Lisvane, Pontprenai, etc., etc. The reason we are suggesting this, well, there's two reasons. One of which is that the existing local development plan requires that 29,100 houses are built in Cardiff, new houses are built in Cardiff by 2026. To the end of March of last year, 6,400 were built against 29,000. So even if the amount of house building over the next 5 years exceeded the record number of houses that have ever been built in Cardiff in 1 year, they would not reach the target of 29,000 by 2026. So we suggest that currently there is no need for any further land to be allocated. I should say at this point, I should have said it a while ago, that land north of Llantrisant Road, Pantawa Lane, is already included in the existing local development plan as a site with potential for future expansion. So in many ways, it's already been allocated. The other reason we are contesting the council's options is because their proposals for future growth are based on the expansion of the population of Cardiff. In 2021, it was estimated that the population of Cardiff was 368,000. Estimated, I suggest. I'll come back to that. The council is suggesting by 2031, it'll go up to 379,000. But those are projections. And the last firm estimate of the population of Cardiff was from the 2011 census, 10 years ago. These projections for population increase in Cardiff over the next few years are based solely on international in-migration. Now, there are a number of reasons why that may no longer be valid. Brexit may cause a decline in the number of people wanting to move to Cardiff from abroad. The results of COVID are far from clear, and so on. And in any case, the results of the 2021 census will only be published in May of this year. And that is the first time we will actually get a definitive figure for the population of Cardiff. So at the moment, we have proposed to the council that there is no need for any further growth, and there is no need at this stage for the development of the land north of Llantrisant Road. I should just say briefly, in terms of the Radyr Station car park site, which Transport for Wales has provided as a proposed as a candidate site, I would suggest, based on the evidence from Wine Road, that what they propose to do there is to build flats over the car park. In other words, to try and earn some money, as the budgets for development in Wales over the next few years are fairly low. But that's conjecture on my part. I think that's all I've really got to say. You'll be pleased to know that Angela can perhaps just summarise about how we're going to take this forward before we hand over to Rod McCurlick, I think. But thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So what will the Radyr Morganstown local development group be focusing on in the coming months? Well, first of all, we want to work together with other local groups who have a common interest. That will be obviously the Community Council, the North West Cardiff Group, Kentucky Community Group. We want to make sure that we are all giving the same message to Cardiff Council, which is very important to me. Ideally, we would like to liaise and keep in contact with the planning team while they're considering the responses to the consultation and preparing the next stage, which you'll remember from Ian's presentation is the next stage, which is coming out in October, which will be the preferred strategy and a list of approved sites. So we certainly need to prepare for the next consultation on that stage. Meanwhile, we need to monitor and analyse the new population figures that will be coming out shortly, we hope, based on the recent census. And we also want to examine the annual monitoring report, which comes out every year. Every April, there's a monitoring report on the existing development plan. So we would like to analyse that when it comes out, because that will give information on the latest rates of construction across Cardiff, and we'll be able to see then whether they continue to be below the rates that was anticipated. Crucially, we need to understand the methodology for accepting the candidate sites onto a list of approved sites for the next stage. There may be opportunities here for challenge in terms of environmental grounds, legal grounds, Welsh government policy, etc. So it will be good to explore how the criteria are applied to move the candidate sites onto approved sites, onto the approved list. Obviously, we want to raise awareness in our local community. We want to encourage people to ask questions of candidates in the forthcoming local elections, see where they stand, and to use social media to get our message across. And there may also be an appetite for organising some form of protest, or perhaps getting the press interested. So there's lots of things that the group already have thought about, and I'm sure there will be more ideas coming up in the future. Just quickly to conclude, if you'd like to keep up to date with what we're doing, there is a page on the RMA website dedicated to us. We're under groups. If you go onto the Radyr Morganstown Association website, I think at the top there says groups, and if you go on there, we're one of the groups under there. So that's our web page. If you want to record your views, or if you have some specialist knowledge which you think might be useful to us, you can email us. The address is on that web page. And we've already had contributions from several scientists and medical experts in the community, which has been really valuable. And lastly, if you would like to actively participate, I emphasise actively because we really want to be a group of doers and not just sayers. Please get in touch with our secretary, Reeds, via our email, which is also on that webpage, but I can give it to you later. And she will advise you about the next meeting if you want to get involved. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Angela. I'd now like to welcome Stuart Burgess. Stuart is the chair of the North West Cardiff Group, and I'll hand over to you.
Good evening, everybody. A little background first, perhaps, to explain where the North West Cardiff Group comes from, came from. It was set up to do exactly the sort of things that have just been.
Closer to the mic.
That close?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry. Right, I was starting to say that the North West Cardiff Group came about during the consultation stages of the first LDP some years ago. It started out coming together with the community councils of Radyr Morganstown, Plasdŵr, and St Fagans. Other groups have since joined, things called Community Association, Landlord Society, most recently the Cardiff Civic Society have liaised with us, and we have liaised with them. And given that one of the problems that we faced with the previous LDP was the traffic level on Electricity Road, we also liaised with the community councils beyond the Cardiff boundary that represent the listed area and Electricity. We decided, going back in the LDP, that the main thrust of our argument previously was to ensure, or try and ensure, that adequate infrastructure was provided as part of the LDP, rather than just seeing large numbers of houses built without any community facilities, transport facilities, community facilities, medical facilities, and the like. So a huge amount of work was done, both by the group, by members of the group, by the group secretary, put into Cardiff. We attended all the meetings that were eventually set up when the planning inspector became involved. As far as Cardiff Council is concerned, by and large, it's fair to say that they did their utmost to ignore the advice that we gave them. And on that basis, and on the assumption that the same applied to the rest of the advice that was provided, we collectively, I would suggest, try and do a lot better this time around and to work a lot more cooperatively. Now, where are we with the current, the RLDP as it's called? We've had one consultation stage so far, but all that's happened as far as consultation is concerned, some vague ideas have been put forward by the council as outlined strategy. We need to perhaps try and avoid the faults that were built into the last LDP, which I large on the moment, in taking the new LDP forward and in trying to arrive at hopefully a sensible solution that will satisfy us all. Now, as far as Peter and Angela commented on various things that they said about restricting the anticipated growth, we agree there's no need for any further growth in Cardiff. We want to try and avoid the fact that Manchester Road was overcrowded before any of this happened. It can only get worse unless it gets better. The improved design in inverted commas that we've seen so far, to my mind, to our mind, would give the impression that the designs were given to perhaps some work-study engineering student who was given the task of trying to ensure that as many different layouts could be incorporated into the short end as possible. Having said that, the white painted roundabout on the road down by the garage, we believe is a future death trap. And we're not at all happy with the junction that's been formed by the east joins Christmas Road. But it's slip road, and the fact that if you go down slip road to carry on towards Cardiff, you have to break your neck. Almost break your neck to see whether it's safe for a sneeze. So those are just two small points. One of the main points of Cardiff's LDP was its desire to get at least 50% of people going to work travelling on by what's known as active travel means. Active travel means using the bus, using the train, cycling there, or if you live a bit closer perhaps to the town and here, walking. The idea was that by the end of the LDP period in 2026, they would have achieved this 50%. But to date, there is no sign of, or very little sign of any movement in that direction. And we must continue to argue the need for this. The other problem with the LDP, which hopefully will be addressed this time around, is the fact that Cardiff had an LDP, Radyr Morganstown had an LDP, Newport had an LDP, Italy had an LDP, and any other of our neighbours that have missed out also had an LDP. But these authorities did very little to talk to each other and agree common boundaries where, well, not common boundaries where their actual boundaries are, but common boundaries to where the LDPs would actually come together. They don't. Welsh government has realised the need for regional planning. There's introduced legislation regarding regional planning in recent years, and hopefully this will play a major part in the plans Cardiff are out of eventually, and they will indeed liaise with neighbouring authorities. But part of the consultation with the LDP is that I believe is we should make sure that happens. That's really all I want to say for the moment. I can answer questions later if you like. Except to say that the North West Cardiff Group currently has a problem with a short percentage. If anybody would like to be considered for the job, please tell us know to be rated. Apart from that, I'll say thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Could I ask you, who I don't think I need to introduce, to come forward and speak?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Well, as mentioned, there are a few of us who bear the scars of the last LDP. I can actually claim to bear the scars of the last two LDPs because I was involved in the one which was put forward in 2008, put forward by the Lieutenant Administration, and it called for no further greenfield land to be released. Now, they were told by the inspector that that was not completely acceptable. There would have to be some element of greenfield land, and they withdrew the plan. So then we fast forward 4 years, and the Labour Party are the ruling party, and they are egged on by the planners in the Senate, and they are determined to have a lot more houses and a lot more greenfield land being released. And the contrast between the LDP put forward in 2008 and that finally delivered in about 2014 is simply enormous. And the truth lay somewhere in between. We established a fairly good team to look at the last version of the LDP, but we did a number of things wrong. And I would like to try and point out the things which we did which were mistaken in the hope that we can avoid repeating these mistakes. The first thing we didn't accept properly was that if you've got a Senate team pushing very hard for such policies as releasing the candidate site into being an actual, the potential site being a candidate site, they're a very strong force. And when the plan was produced, it was rushed through council on the back of having a working majority. It was whipped. No one voted against the whip, and it went through. And we've been living with the consequences ever since. Now, it's a long process, and we as a team in this area produced a lot of good arguments against it. And I would say, if you judge our depositions with the reality, we had the better of the argument. We said they were releasing 200 greenfield land. That has proved to be correct. We said they were trying to build too many houses. That has proved to be correct. We said the population projections were wrong. That has turned out to be correct. And we said that if they give huge amounts of land to one major developer and one major landowner, they are just handing over a monopoly to one particular party. And they will not build the houses at the rate it says in the plan. They will build the houses at the rate which gives them their 30% projected profit. And that's one of the reasons why the uptake of housing build is so low relative to that which was projected. Now, we pointed all of this out, and we also attended the inspectors' hearings, and there were about 30 of them on all day over an 8-week period. And we had a lot of very valuable points. But in some cases, we let ourselves down because we were up against a focused argument from the Cardiff Planning Department and the Senate Planning Department acting in concert, and we were a series of diffuse individuals making related points, but not making the same point accurately and in a controlled way. It's absolutely essential that this community has to speak in a united way. And the first point at which it has to be united was touched on by Peter Fortune. We've got to stop that candidate site on the golf course from being turned into a candidate, from being turned into a projected site. The Senate Planning Department was pushed very hard for it. They pushed very, very hard the last time. They wanted it to be put forward as a candidate site then. We resisted it strongly and we got away with it. But it's absolutely essential that we do it this time because the next phase of the argument is querying the population growth. We've got to get the population growth figures down to a reasonable level, because if we do that and combine it with resolute opposition to developing that site, then we have a chance of rescuing this village from further depredations. Now, there are another couple of issues where we didn't quite get it right. It is a long campaign. It's a very long campaign to go from here to 2024, but it's going to go for possibly being an accepted plan. However, if it does happen, and there are things in the plan which we don't like, it doesn't stop there. Because what happens once the plan is accepted, you start to get planning applications going in. And I can tell you, the planning applications which went in for Park Radyr and Plasdŵr are just enormous. You get a planning application which has got 100 documents, but some of these documents are 200 pages. It is very, very difficult to keep up with what they do. And the devil is in the detail, because in these big documents, you find documents relating to hydrology. They say the hydrology, which is water line, is under control. Well, there are still houses which were built before 2000, which are suffering from artificial fountains in their garden every time it rains. There is still a problem with the play area in Plasdŵr, that it floods the tennis club and the houses on Hill Eastaf, and it's not been used as a play area for 3 years. The hydrology was quite simply wrong. And it is very, very important that it is grasped that this makes it not a good idea to further increase the number of houses built in these undesirable locations. Then there's the point which Stuart touched on, which is the way in which the new traffic developments were scheduled for Eastaf, and which David's petition addressed. The problem was that his petition came in 4 years after the plans had been approved. And the time to deal with these things is not 4 years after the plan has been approved and you're faced with problems with lights which are on the dangerous side. The time to oppose them is when the planning application comes in. So I would suggest that we need to appoint a team which is capable of taking us up to the stage of opposing the local development plan, but then going beyond that, a team which will continue to monitor a planning application as they come in, and that's a very big job. And maybe that we'll have to find cash in the community to acquire professional help to make that work. Specific points, I would say, for the new LDP. I think that.
Sorry, can I just ask, when you're saying us, right? When you say us, do you mean the whole community? Do you mean the community council? I'm not quite clear who your us is.
Well, you will recognise that I'm about to become an extinct volcano. And I'm giving people an expression of what I think should happen without accepting any responsibility for making it happen, which is a nice position to be in. After 15 years of being sharp and with 5,500 loyal but very demanding constituents. I think that you have a good point, and I'm reluctant to commit my colleagues in Radyr Morganstown Community Council to any course of action, but they do have the ability to raise funds. And I don't think anyone in this population would argue that they do not want the precept to be used to defend this particular location against further depredations. When the next local development plan is developed, one thing which was conspicuously missing from the last one are sports facilities. And there's now a new primary school being built at the end of Eastaf. I'm glad to say that David Silver is going to be on the governing board, so he can take up the point I made the German complicated. It's absolutely ridiculous that they've got a grass playing field and it should be a 3G pitch. The 3G pitch to be built all over Cardiff. And the huge area of Radyr Morganstown is greatly lacking in these facilities, and the hinterland of that development demands a 3G pitch, and that should be included in any further development. I think that's just about wraps up my conclusion.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Rob, and thank you for other speakers. We'll now pass things over to the floor and to people on Zoom, and please indicate if you'd like to speak. David Carver, I can see your voice.
Just a point of information, really. I wrote or drafted a letter to the Earl in 2017 as I was treasurer of the Golf Club, and we were having difficult negotiations at that time, which incidentally is still going on. But I did write last year to him, and I appealed to his better judgment, because the family at the Earl of Plymouth have done a lot in the village. They provided land for the tennis club and the golf club, and as you well know, there are lots of roads round and about with the name Windsor. I didn't get a response for a long time, but eventually I got a response from his agent, and it's not Cook and Arkwright, it's Litchfields, and they said, well, we are providing land to respond to the aspirations of Cardiff County Council, and if they require land, we have got it, we will negotiate. A senior planner who made some observations of this letter said this was overblown, fatuous and nonsense. I've rewritten to the Earl and I still have no reply, but I hope I can reply directly from him. Again, appealing, because that land could be used for community use. It doesn't need to be used for housing, and perhaps we could raise funds, to buy it at agricultural prices. But there we are, we can see. So that's where we are with the land. And as you're probably aware, the wood, Mardy Wood, has got a preservation order on it, and that was taken out in the 1980s with 200 signatures within the community. And the old South Glamorgan County Council put that into motion, and it was registered as protected land, protected wood. Whether the Cardiff County Council have still got it registered, I've asked them today to respond to that, but we'll see what they say. On the question of the roads, yes, we had a petition. Nearly 500 people signed that petition. I got a response from the County Council, and they said that they would look at various features. As Rod said, it's probably a bit late in responding to it. However, I think things could be done to improve this. They also said that they wouldn't do very much unless the police informed them there have been major accidents. There have been 3 accidents, serious accidents, but not informed the police because there was no injury to personnel. The police only get involved if there's someone killed or injured. So those 3 accidents, although we've registered them, the police haven't, and the County Council have now been told that there have been at least 3 accidents on that bridge.
Thank you very much, David. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay. Nick wants to speak. Is there anyone on Zoom? Please could you indicate?
I just wanted to make the brief point. It's to do with timing and population growth. What I personally am afraid of is that if that block of land, which is about 1,000 dwellings, which is proposed on Plantower Lane, why is that being pushed forward? Well, sorry, am I cynical in believing that it's because houses built there will have a sort of rather heading on it and will therefore be easier to build on and sell, and in what you might call the hinterland of Plasdŵr. And I really feel that if we allow that land to go ahead, then that will be the next land to develop next to us. And the major block, and it is the major block of Plasdŵr, will go further down the line. And unless I don't know the exact proportion, but a certain proportion of houses in Plasdŵr have got to be built before they even consider building what they might call a commercial centre. In other words, there's no additional doctors, there's no commercial centre, there's no comprehensive school. And I think the whole thing is getting incredibly skewed. And I think that we do need to have a considerable campaign based on whatever basis, that land must not be built on. And I think we're entirely justified in pressing that, even though apparently the pressure for it being developed has actually come from the Welsh Government.
Thank you. I'll just read out a few comments we got in the chat because people in the room want to see. One is Cardiff Council want to stop people using cars to go into the town centre. Surely this means more parking is required around the station, not less, particularly with thousands of houses being built on Cardiff Road. There's another comment, trees have already been felled last week adjacent at Cardiff Road access point to Radyr Park. Who can this be flagged to? Is that you, right?
Well, unless they intend to extend the boundaries of the road,
Is it? Okay.
pass it on to them.
Okay.
David, can you just clarify that was Rod's voice we hear?
Yes, sorry, it was right. He said he's not the councillor for that area. I put Gertrude Farr. So if we pass the message on to him, he will direct them to the correct person. One other comment. Is there going to be additional buses for the Morganstown Radyr area? As currently one bus an hour isn't enough to get people out of their cars to travel into the city centre from Plasdŵr Road. Okay, well, there are all the comments that came through on the chat. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything? Would you, answer?
Yes, fine. My question is really, my question, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Basically, I think when you gentlemen mentioned about the land north of Plasdŵr was already part of the Plasdŵr development. And if that's the case, surely that's green light for council just to do the please. Surely it's all done and dusted, and I'm sure we've all, we all want to fight against these things, but it just feels really a desperate situation. Really, I just feel that it's all sorted, and I think these what we're trying to do is maybe calling on that for years because it's all part of that. It's already part of that building plan.
If I can just answer that. It's in the existing LDP as a potential area of expansion. So, which is not the same as having permission to build a plan. So I think, as I was saying earlier, what we need to do in the next few months is to understand the methodology of how that site, which at the moment has been put forward as a candidate site, there's a sifting operation very quickly in those candidate sites to toss out the ones which are complete no-goes, and then there will be a list of sites which go forward. And because that site, you're quite right, it is in the LDP, but only as a possible extension. So what we need to understand is what are the criteria for moving it onto an approved list, and that's something that we need to investigate. And as I said, there might well be ways that we can challenge that in various criteria. I think that's not key to it.
Hello, my name is Bethan Devenold. I'm a member of the Radyr residents group. We're rather late to the party because we've been busy fighting the relocation of the Pentec surgery to Radyr. But I think I speak on behalf of the group in saying that there are a lot of people on the Radyr estate who are very concerned about this proposed site. So we would like to join forces with you and cooperate as much as we can.
Beth and I'm standing right by the microphone at the moment, and it's really good news that you want to cooperate with us because it's very much a case of we've got to all stand together. So it's brilliant you feel the same way as us. I think what I just want to say is the things that haven't been mentioned that might well come up. I don't know if you're aware that London has 15% of its land is parkland or greenland. Cardiff has got 8%, and we are fast falling short of that here. And I think that's something that we should be flagging up. We've also got the problems of there are issues with the woods in North West because they're being overwalked and they are really suffering. And if we don't have some sort of green barrier, those woods are going to be seriously damaged. So these are the things that we can add to the mix. But I do really want to just congratulate the group for the work that they've done already. I'm incredibly impressed with how to respond so promptly and got it in. It was a considered response. And just more power to you, Albert. I think we're all going to try and back you and support you in everything you do. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anne Elliott. I've lived in Radyr for over 30 years.
Right up to the mic.
Right. Hi, my name is Anne Elliott. I've lived in Radyr for over 30 years, and it saddens me to see all the development of the houses. There's been a great deal of work done by yourselves in the community, but Radyr and Morganstown is a very big area now, and I think that it's the same people that you see coming forward to support these things. And I just wish that the general public of Radyr and Morganstown would step up and give their support for what you're trying to do. I go along the Llantrysson Road and it's just devastation. It's heartbreaking to see what they've done to the green fields, the wildlife that's up at the plants. And to hear now that they want to build on Brad Station car park is absolutely appalling. We're all being told we need to get off our cars, get on our bikes, travel on local transports. But I'm getting older and I still like to go into town occasionally, and I like to drive my car to the station. I did used to walk when I was younger, but I did this trek now. But if those car parks are going to be built on, people like myself who may want to go into town and use the car park and use public transport, what's going to happen to all the roads around Radyr and Morganstown? The congestion is very bad now. And even to go to the village, if you need the supermarket or to go to the chemist or post office, it's sometimes very difficult to park. And I just wanted to make that point that I can't believe that people want to keep on building and building when we know very well that these houses are not really required. And to be honest with you, when you drive out onto the Llantrysson Road, it looks like Noddy Town out there. The houses are dreadful, those pokey little roofs. I just can't imagine what planners and architects are thinking. Thank you.
I just wanted to add actually to that point, and that is that people aren't asking questions. That's fine. That means to say that we've given them a very good briefing. But you've heard that a number of groups who are actually trying to oppose, find a new direction to do with the revised local development plan. And we do want to have new people. We also want to have new ideas. Now, you and all those wonderful people who are on Zoom may have contacts, you may have good ideas that you don't really want to say something in public. But please do get in touch with us to say, why don't you do so and so and so and so? I personally would rather have 5 stupid ideas than to have none, because you probably all know about brainstorming. You never know when a good idea comes up and say, why don't you do that? And Cardiff Council defined the process by which these things are done, the development is done. But it is possible for us to get influence, to protest in other ways. Please give us your ideas, and anonymously or otherwise, and then we can see what we can make of it. It seems a long time until the next stage, but this is the crucial time when actually you can seek to get some influence to the people who are actually making the difference.
Yeah. I'm quite happy. My name is Mike Smith. I've been in Radyr only 47.5 years now. And I obviously have an interest because my back garden is a certain lane that the houses will be built up against. The point I want to make, and it's following on the last gentleman on my right, it covers 5 groups, I think, are involved in looking at this, and perhaps having direction by coordinating themselves together. We are going to get more people speaking out. My problem, I'm an old man, don't use computers much, keep away from them. I wouldn't know about any of this. The last plan, some time ago now, I knew nothing about it before it had actually more or less gone through. I am uncertain how people out there, and most of my neighbours are well in their 70s or into their 80s now, and very uncertain how we're going to get to everybody, however many thousand, because one good way, obviously, you have people that come through the door. Having 3 or 4 papers saying slightly different things is confusing. But one good paper, we do have a good magazine, paper that comes round. And if it was within that, would help. Putting it on computer sites are very useful for people who use computers regularly. We do have to be certain we can get to everybody, including the older generation, which I perhaps represent. I don't know the answer to that, but someone right here will tell. The final point, can I assume, and I'm not just looking at you, my friend, that this will not be a political campaign. It will be a campaign of the community, a social campaign, because the risk is always you go off track if there's a point to be scored by somebody or other against another party. I was and a politician in a quiet way, but I wouldn't want that to also distract from what the community needs, because there is that risk. Thank you.
Good point.
Sorry, it's come. You can't do it.
So I just wanted to say quickly, that was a good point actually, because I only heard about this development by word of mouth, and then since over the last week, 10 days, I've moved to student door. So to reach the community, something to do that.
I would like to say that gentleman also made a very good point, because during the consultation stages of the last LDP, he spent a lot of time trying to tell people how bad it could be, or how bad it could turn out to be. Everybody looked at us basically and said, oh, it's not very bad. They wouldn't do that, would they? Well, they did, basically, didn't they? So the necessity to involve everybody in what's going on is terribly, terribly important. And what I was going to get into, if I may, is to do a bit of explanation for it, which might be a benefit. If it isn't, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to do it anyway. My background is I used to work as a transport planner for Philly. I had a significant input into the Philly's LDP some years ago before I retired. And as a transport planner, I've spent years arguing with major developers as to mainly what road improvements would be necessary as part of the schemes, and what they would cost, and how they would be paid for. The way development takes place, it starts usually with a landowner who comes forward and says, I've got a piece of land, I'd like to develop it. I've persuaded Wimpy, they might be interested in development, or I've persuaded Radyr to take an interest in it. What are the chances of that happening? What then happens is they enter into a sort of preliminary agreement with the developer that if they can get planning permission for it, the developer can then go ahead, seek detailed planning permission, hopefully go ahead and spend a small fortune building houses. The reason this is of benefit to landowners is the difference in value between agricultural land and land that's got planning permission for development. Agricultural land typically costs about £1,000 or £2,000 per acre. Development land costs typically a couple of million pounds per acre. You can envisage the difference between the two. You can then think, how many acres of land the early Plymouth has managed to get planning permission for in Cardiff LDP? You can then multiply that by the figure I was just talking about. He's obviously pocketed a vast fortune, been paid for by, mainly by Radyr, but also by the other developers as well. Now, one of the things that is always necessary when a large development comes along is to consider all the side benefits that are necessary. I mentioned community infrastructure, medical infrastructure, things like playing fields, highway improvements and so on. How are they all going to be paid for? Well, they normally pay for under what's called the Section 106 agreement. The Section 106 agreement is an agreement with the developer that in return for being allowed to proceed, he will effectively either finance or build those facilities that the council deems necessary, whether it's a road improvement, a playing field, a community centre, or whatever. And these agreements are legal agreements, they're legally binding, and they're signed up to. The difficulty is that most planners, when they enter into them, because developers will say, oh, I can't afford to do that until I've made a fortune already in building the properties, they normally put conditional planning consent, which requires an improvement to be undertaken after, say, 300 houses have been built. The difficulty that happens so often is the developer will build 299 houses and then disappear. This is how things don't happen. The sort of it's necessary to guard it. The other thing I'd like to make you aware of is that Cardiff and all authorities, all highway authorities that is, are under a statutory obligation to improve the efficiency of their highway networks. I don't know if anybody or any of you would agree, but has Cardiff done anything to improve the efficiency of its highway network in recent memory? The law says that subject to policy, they must do. The only policy Cardiff seems to have is to ignore this piece of legislation. So that's something else that should be borne in mind when making comments on the applications that do come forward. Right, I hope that's of some interest and help to everybody. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anne Smith. My husband's already spoken this evening. First of all, can I ask if anyone in this room actually knows who produced the latest leaflet we have through the door? Just a sheet coloured with a barcode, well, not a barcode, a QR code on it. The pattern doesn't work. My phone won't do it anyway. Because it is about Radyr, thank you, Roseanne. Radyr is building 1,000 houses on this site. Have you all had those?
Yes. No Cardiff. No Cardiff.
Right. And that is the Pound Tower site. And it's called the Radyr proposed site. Has whoever produced this actually had any kind of permission or raison d'etre to say that this is the case? Because it's frightening people. I mean, the young lady who spoke earlier on seemed to think that this is a done deal, that this development is going ahead, whereas we've been given all the information, but it's not a done deal. If anyone does know who produced this, would they kindly let somebody know? So we can.
Publisher's name at the bottom.
No, it says
It's independent.
this flyer is independently produced. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, did it frighten you, or did you think that no? Right.
I think it's good, it brings people's attention, it hasn't frightened me, no.
Right, okay, but I mean, they're actually giving, you know, in.
Excuse me, if people are going to have conversations.
Yeah, sorry, you
Excuse
can't.
me, 2/3 of the people can't hear you. If anyone wants to say anything, please can you come up to the microphone?
Okay, anyway, it does say this flyer is independently produced and funded with no connection to any official group opposed to the LDP. Okay.
You move further to the mic.
Yeah, okay, it says this flyer is independently produced and funded with no connection to any official group opposed to the LDP. So that's just one thing. We know about the infrastructure and what has to be in place as well. With the present development along the Fanchester Road, we know that there's supposed to be schools, doctor surgeries, etc., etc. Has anybody actually seen any start to any school yet? Given the number of houses that have already been occupied there. I was astounded last week. We were coming back from Llantwit Major to Cowbridge, and the new road now into Cowbridge comes through the new Clare Gardens estate. Nowhere near as big as what's already done on the Fanchester Road. And there is a big hoarding. Wimpy is building the primary school, and they've started it. Now, another reason why we should oppose any future development.
Can I just say that the new primary school is supposedly being built? I know because I'm just being pointed onto the governing body, and the first thing we have to do is get a head teacher, and that is due to start in not this September, but the September afterwards. So that school, the Plasdŵr area, the first one, and there are supposed to be at least 3 others. And ultimately a secondary school. Though one of you, but I think that has to be built by Cardiff, where the primary schools have to be built by the developer. So how long that will take, I don't know. I think that also is true. Yeah. So.
The developer asked to postpone starting work on the new school, which is now under construction. Originally, it was supposed to be taking pupils in September of 21, but that was left out to September of 22 until the pandemic appeared, which gave them a further opportunity to develop. But the numbers of people looking for places in primary schools in this area has actually changed. For a very long time, David will know from his knowledge of Brindley and I from mine over the primary. With the children coming forward looking for a place in reception, until about 15 years ago, it was only 45, and there were potentially 75 places available. It then grew quite drastically to about 90, and we got rather primary increased to 2 points of entry. So there are 90 places, and there are approximately 91, 92 people looking for this. And last year, in fact, there were not even 90. So the fact that the building of the school was deferred for 2 years might have serious consequences but it hasn't. There will be 3 further schools to follow, and there will also be 1, if not 2, comprehensive schools. And obviously, the discussions of other church in Wales, Welsh speaking, Roman Catholic, comprehensive, Muslim, there's a lot of consultation. The public will be consulted as to what shape these schools will take. Right. Thank you all very much, and thank you for all the speakers tonight and for all your comments. We have been recording this session, so if you want to go back and see this again, just look on the local website, radyr.org.uk, and you'll find it. I'd like especially to thank the 3 speakers. I don't know, one thing I would ask, and it's probably not something you can ask now, is we keep talking about all speaking in one voice. I just wondered how we're going to ensure, well, we've got the Community Council, we've got local group, we've got the North West Cardiff Group, to make sure we actually do the same thing. Whether the 3 groups actually are going to get together sometime to talk about this. Because obviously, as far as the community is concerned, we want to see this stop. And therefore, we want to see everybody saying the same thing and not different. But as I said, I couldn't expect that tonight. So thank you all very much, and we'll carry on with the rest of the meeting. The next item is really just to go through the minutes of the last meeting. There isn't really much to say about that. Most of the items will be coming up again today. I just wondered, Ian, have you got anything else on planning?
I think the only other thing for me to say is that we don't know much else on anything else at the moment. We've had no contact from Transport for Wales recently when we've been trying to engage with them about the building of the bridge in Morganstown over the railway line. They have not responded to our recent requests for information. There is also, we're aware, a pre-planning application in for a site to the rear of Ravensbrook, a piece of land there that is in pre-application that the RMA are currently looking at getting comments in to try and preserve that green strip between the 2 layers of estate there. I think most of our planning efforts at the moment are LDP related, but if you do see a planning application that you have particular concerns about, or you would like the RMA to flag to others, then do please let us know.
Okay, thank you. One thing we did raise last time was the future role of the RMA, and we said we really wanted to look at our activities. We've been doing the same thing for a long time to see what our members want. We would really like feedback, if anybody has any, about what you would like to see us do, or what you would like to see us stop doing. I mean, obviously, a meeting like tonight where we have a meeting where we have live people and we have people on Zoom, and we've got twice as many people on Zoom. Now, is that something we should be taking note of? So please, if you do have ideas, get back to us. Right, Treasury report, David?
Well, very briefly, the accounts for 2021 annual will be presented at the AGM in March. 2021 was a difficult year, as we all know, but we did manage to have an autumn festival, which unfortunately didn't raise a lot of funds, but was very successful. Along with grants, the total income generated for both the association and the charity, which was generous, was £7,406, of which £4,528 was reserved for the charity, and the charity raised a further £2,000. So they raised between £6,000 and £7,000 a year. Costs exceeded income during the year by £2,500, which obviously completed bank balance from £8,172 last year to £5,160. The major items of expenditure included our insurance, web hosting, and Christmas trees in Station Road. We've got a small stock of wine and food that we didn't use at the Christmas event, and that will be carried forward to the next festival. In 2022, the association, along with the Radyr Morganstown Local Development Group, will be involved obviously in negotiations with Cardiff County Council, and we will be looking for to our local community council for funds towards perhaps professional fees and leaflets perhaps. We will see. You look better with it on.
Thank you, David. Typical, then it seems to get you high up. Sorry about that. Okay, the next item is the Money Festival. Money Festival this year is going to start on Saturday, the 30th of April 8. I think this year we actually, as a committee, there seems to be quite a lot done. We've ended up with about 28 events. And considering how difficult it was sometimes to find people to put things on when various groups have not been meeting for about a year and a half, trying to get a choir, trying to get a band, we haven't been practicing. We actually got very difficult. But in fact, we now have a complete programme. We've got a lot of the events that we normally have. As I said, we've got a fete, we've got a farewell concert, we've got a play, we've got a cookery evening, vintage tea party. We have a couple of other things this year, put on by WI. We're having a parade again, this time on Bank Holiday Monday, which is going to go from the War Memorial down to the signings. And down there, there are going to be games for children, and this is going to be followed by the dog show. So this is part of what we normally do to try and have events all around the community. Obviously, we have our normal big concert in the park. As you know, we try and do things for the youth, and we now have an event this year in collaboration with Cardiff University, which is called Brain Games. And this will be on for one day at Radyr Primary, but it's for all the children. And it's trying to get them interested in psychology, neuroscience, and things like that. So it's a bit sort of technical type things. I have models of brains and other stuff like that, brain operations. So some of those things should be really interesting. So I do hope you can come along and enjoy that. The next thing I just briefly want to talk about is the Platinum Jubilee. I started to have a chat with Alan Cook, who's on the Community Council, and we were talking about the possibility of having an event on the Thursday evening. It's not obviously confirmed yet, but the idea would be to have an event at Radyr, where we could actually light the beacon. We're told it's the only place you can see the big picture from England. So it seems like it's a good place, it's a big place. And I'm going to have a barbecue, a bar, have things like musical entertainment, people could have picnics, possibly fireworks afterwards if we can arrange it. And I think there will be other things, but the Community Council just starting to set up a group to look at this. Ian, election hustings?
Thank you, David. Yes, it's my job to talk about election hustings because we are coming up to the local elections. So the RMA will be hosting 2 hustings events. On the 4th of April, we will have the event for the Principal Council, that is Cardiff County Council. On the 25th of April, we will be holding an event for candidates in the Community Council. We're hoping to hold both of these as hybrid events, similar to the event we have held this evening. So do please come along and hear who your candidates are and what they are standing for. And it just then leaves me to remind everyone, if you are not already registered, do please register to vote by the 14th of April. And remember that also includes now anyone over the age of 16 is now eligible to vote in local council and local elections. So do ensure that anyone who is eligible in your household is registered to vote by the 14th of April. And of course, polling day is the 6th of May, if it's not already got a big red circle around it in your diary.
Thank you. The next item is AGM. Our AGM, which is going to be the next meeting, is going to be on the 28th of March here in the Old Church Rooms. Obviously, one of the things that we're always interested in, and we're particularly interested in this year, is getting more people involved, getting more people along, and people to come and give us ideas of what they'd like us to do. So if anybody has any interest or are willing to help, or know people that are willing to help, or especially people with a van, which is something the guest on the show talking can actually help us when we have events to carry stuff around, please do come forward. But that's going to be on the 28th. Okay, has anybody got anything else they wish to raise?
Just mention we hope to have beer and have drinks.
Nick says we're planning to have it here and we're hoping to have drinks. I think that tends to be rather dry. I just want to go back and check if anybody else has got any other items. Okay, there's one message I have which says the election is on the 5th of May, not the 6th of May. I'm sorry, I can't answer that at the moment because I can't look.
And I just have a few seconds of time. A number of us are part of a scheme where we're expected to sort our rubbish and go back. But the last 3 collections are all into the same truck, mixed up again. Does anybody know why this is? Yeah.
There is a drive to try and improve the quality of the refuse which we collect, because it's very difficult to sell it, it is very heavily contaminated. I speak as someone who worked for many years in the paper industry, and I would always look when I went to a mill to see what we were getting in the way of waste paper. If the paper is wet or full of rubbish, then you're paying for stuff you don't want, you have to expensively remove it, and even more expensively pay someone to take it away. Now, the upshot of that is that when the market is buoyant, there's a shortage of recyclable material, you can get away with selling anything. If you give people rubbish, then as soon as they get the chance, they stop buying it from you. Now, Cardiff Council collects something like 200,000 tonnes a year of refuse. And it's got to be either processed at great expense or sold or given away. And the ideal thing to do is remove from the waste stream everything which you can sell. And there are things like cardboard and newsprint, milk cartons, aluminium cans, ferrous metal. You can sell these for quite substantial sums. And then there's stuff which you sometimes have to give away, sometimes you need a small sum of money for them, and that includes glass. Now, if the plastic and the newsprint and the cardboard is contaminated because someone has put a carton of yogurt in the green bag along with the refuse, it's unsaleable. And it becomes much more saleable if it's put in a clean condition. Glass is much more saleable if it's separated out into different colours. So we've been experimenting with various types of sorting systems, but it ain't straightforward. I went to Belfast to see how they do it. They have a refuse vehicle which got something like 12 different compartments, and as the refuse lorry goes down, it's sorting the stuff from the house into 12 different compartments. Now, can anyone imagine what would happen if a refuse vehicle went down Dale East at rush hour doing exactly that? So they're trying to do something which is a compromise between what's done in Belfast and what's done in currently in Cardiff. So the intention is to try to separate the stuff out better and make sure that it's cleaner. There is a consultation, and I will be sending to the RMA the date which you send the comments, and also give the email address which comments can be sent in. A number of people have told me that they're not satisfied with what's happening up to date, and I have passed them on in each case. Now, the specific point that Colin makes is that the refuse vehicle, which is supposed to be taken to 4 separate streams, is chucking them all in together. Well, the reason for that is that if you're having a trial, you have to get a piece of equipment which can handle the trial material. And they've got one vehicle on them, and the one vehicle broke down and it's not been repaired yet. It's also a complication when it gets to the yard, Because normally you just chip the refuse onto a concrete apron and then use a dumper truck to put it onto a conveyor belt. You need 4 separate conveyor belts if you're setting up to the refuse. It's only a trial. It's an attempt to find out what works and what doesn't work, but it is accepted. It's not very good if you're on a vehicle. You just roll them down. But they are trying their best. And all the points that have been made with objections, I have passed on.
Okay, thank you very much, Rowan. Just a few more points. As normal, we have a raffle festival, and you will get raffle tickets in my chain. Headway will still be our charity. We decided to change now, so our charity will be a charity from January to December, which fits in with our financial year, used to be up to July. So Headway will still be the charity up until Christmas this year. Also, now I'd very much like to thank Ian, who did most of the work in set up an organisation of this. I really hope people found it worked very well. We would really like some feedback. Obviously, there are people in the room, there are also people on Zoom. So if you do have any, please do email us and just let us know what we thought, how well it worked, and obviously how well it worked on Zoom. So can I thank you all for coming tonight, and hopefully we'll see you all at the AGM. Thank you all very much.